Bro, I cannot say and explain just how happy I am to see Mao and the Devils of Part-Timers' entire crew back to the TV screen 9 years since their initial debut. And I love the fact that 9 years later, my boy gets finally Dullahan 2. Things are looking up for him, right? He's got his new bike. Yeah, maybe he had a run-in with the arch nemesis, the cockroach, but all things considered, things aren't too shabby. And then the end of the episode comes in, sucker punches not only him, but Emmy, the hero, as well. And now they realize they have a kid together. And of course they do, because even without being physical together, at least physical in that way, some magic shenanigans can always take place. And the fact that an already poor broke-ass bitch who has to... Basically, he's the only real working income in that household. You have Lucifer, who is basically a shut-in who wastes money and doesn't fill up the barley tea. And then, I mean, Ozil, bless his heart, is basically the housewife. Like, there's not too much going on. Throw in another person, a baby, essentially, you know, a young child, that, like, how is McRonald's gonna pay for that? Now, the blessing, I will say for him, is the fact that the mother has money. So, hopefully, I'm honestly saying this for the benefit of both her, because she don't want to live in that small-ass apartment, but also I think Mao, after going through everything he has, I think he deserves to only see her on weekends, you know, just because this man's life has already been shattered so much, we don't need to make it any worse. I mean, this show, finally returning, this has been one of the most hyped up, please give us more, among my friend group and among so many different anime circles, and eventually we gave up hope, so when it did get confirmed for more, it honestly felt like, holy shit, the anime gods be blessing us with the best news. The thing that definitely I knew caught some people by surprise was the shift in art style, which anytime you come back after a long hiatus or even, you know, switching studios, a change in art direction is to be expected, but it definitely had a pretty drastic shift, going a lot more rounder and a lot more, makes the characters look a lot younger. In fact, it actually reminded me of the art shift between High School DxD and then its last season that aired, where like it was a massive shift. I will say it was a little easier to get adjusted in Devils of Part-Timer than it was in that show, but I will say if I was to be asked, what do I prefer, Season 1 or Season 2's art style? I prefer Season 1's. I think it was a little more mature, a little more, it just didn't feel as, I guess they didn't look as young. They didn't look as, I guess, as simplistic as they do in this season, but I'm not here to say that ruined my enjoyment. Within 2 minutes, I was just sucked in, being like, yeah, it's a different art style, but it doesn't matter. They still look like the characters, and it still functions as we can see from Season 1, and as someone who recently watched Season 1 in anticipation, made a video on it, wanted to rewatch it just to get refreshed, I mean, it still feels like Devils of Part-Timer, and it was very easy to get adjusted with the new look of the show, and a lot of the stuff that I love about how they go about animating those intense scenes, even if it is just cleaning or bickering and things like that. They still did a hell of a good job. I actually wasn't expecting anything too crazy this episode. I knew there was a child to be introduced, and I mean, the poster just kind of gives me the impression, even if it wasn't going the road of this is their kid, it kind of gave me the impression that Emmy and Mao would be the ones who would take care of her for one reason or another. I love the reason behind it. It's definitely the most slap to the face moment ever. And the fact that it wasn't even just the dad, but seemingly the mom who got this surprise that, oh, you know, a giant apple that falls from the sky apparently is our kid. Holy shit. Like, that's absolutely fantastic. But it was a pretty simple episode, but I think that's what always has been amazing about Devils of Part-Timer, is that it has those arcs where there's action, it has those arcs where it's more character building, and it has those episodes where it's going to McDonald's, seeing the weird shit that you'll see going to a restaurant like that. Cute kids ordering from the kids' meal and fat asses ordering 10 Big Mac meals because apparently that's their diet at this point, and it's kind of disturbing. But it's also great to see just all the different characters and the bickering, because honestly, for like the first third of this episode, Osio was kind of like the star, if you ask me. This man was spitting off like fire left and right. He was pissed off. He was like saying, you're a shut-in, you do nothing, you don't fill up the barley tea, you don't vacuum, you don't do this or that. And he was slamming this man, probably rightfully so. I mean, granted, it's kind of like freeloading. Moocher doesn't do too much. And you can argue, well, does he work as much as Mao? But ultimately, like, he's even going out of his way to get more work and stable work. But he's obviously going to pass the more house cleaning stuff towards someone who doesn't do shit all day, But ultimately, we all know who's going to still do the housework probably more often than not, especially if it doesn't get done to his standards. But it's just great to see the comedy take off, and that cockroach scene was absolutely to die for. I thought that was going to be the best part of the episode up until the final moments, because I was like, just like, oh man, there's like this evil beast that's stalking them. They're both sensing it. Something's going on. And then to just see how they like censored the cockroach and just the moment of like a giant magical hammer, you know, just summoning magic to take care of, yes, a disgusting insect, but like, holy shit, leave it to devil as a part-timer, right? Like something that you can't really predict will happen, but as soon as you see it, you're just like, of course that would happen. Like, how else is this ever gonna happen? Like, they're going to destroy an apartment building to take out a cockroach, let's be completely honest. I'm very excited though for season 2, even more so than I was leaving this episode compared to walking into this episode, mainly because I think the unexpected, like, becoming parents and not knowing, for them anyway, why it was sent and why it was happening. They obviously tease us at the beginning of the episode, pretty much indicating that that was probably what happened at the end of the episode. But I like the fact that it definitely feels like the story is going to get very interesting, given the fact that you have characters like Chi, who were basically on cloud 9. I mean, as soon as there was a giant portal opening up, my boy, being the gentleman he is, went and protected the person who probably couldn't protect herself the most there. She definitely was like, oh my god, he hugged me, and she was floating on, you know, the moon there. But then she gets very like, you have a wife, you have a kid, why didn't you tell me? Are you a deadbeat dad? And then realizing that basically your main love romance rival is seemingly the mother of said kid, a lot of emotions are gumming, and I think that love triangle got even better than it already was. And if you watched my video covering season 1, you will know that, like, I thought the love triangle was handled very well, and adding in a kid to the mix of all that will be very, very fun to see. But I mean, I haven't heard too much about the kid in question. I mean, based on what they showed us, she seems pretty adorable, so I'm excited to see what type of adorable, if maybe violent shenanigans that they'll get up into with her around. But ultimately, great episode. Love the opening, love the ending. It's just, it feels good to finally be back with new Devils the Part-Timer content, because if you're like me, you haven't just watched the first season a couple of times, you've watched it quite a few times over the years, and even knowing it didn't have a conclusive ending, it was still just such a good show, it was hard not to rewatch from time to time, and now I'm glad at the very least we have at least 2 cores, and hopefully that won't be the end of it. I'll also say that whenever this one does get a dub, I'm not sure if there'll be a simulcast dub for this at all, given that I don't really know how that works anymore with the merger between Funimation and Crunchyroll, but I love the Devil is a Part-Timer dub, so as soon as that pops up, whether they're doing weekly, whether they're just gonna wait for it to be over, I can't wait to watch it in dub, because I think both the Japanese and the English actors do such a good job at capturing the atmosphere that, I mean, watching it, giving me even more reasons to watch it is always a blessing. But the dub is fantastic, but I love the Japanese as well, so I'm excited to see what they decide to do with that casting. The thoughts down below, what did you think of all the crazy shit that went on? What do you think of the change in art style? Does it bother you? Do you like it more? Are you fine with it? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.